You've been a little bit embittered.
There are a lot of influencers who use apps to jimmy rig their engagement.
As believers, we should follow our convictions differently.
Taking the longer route, maybe the harder route, I think God tends to bless that.
I'm not supposed to do it that way.
I can't help see the, hey honey, come here. I look like you love me. Are you really, I guess, any different as far as your convictions go?
Welcome to Upside Down Influencer, where we talk about the things we see on social media and how we as Christ followers can do it differently. I'm your host, Jessica Johnson. Today's guest is Evan Werthman of Snaxonville. Snaxonville is a food-based account here in Jacksonville, Florida. Evan is super introspective, and now that he's had some success in the TikTok, Instagram, social media world, he has seen the good side, but he has also seen the dark side. So he has seen some of the fakeness, some of the cheating the system. Is it worth it to do things God's way on social media, even if it's the longer and the tougher route? Is it wrong as a believer to buy followers or buy engagement? What is real influence on social media? And we had fun wrestling through these things together, and we had a lot of common ground. Here's my conversation with Evan Werthman. Evan, thank you for coming to Upside Down Influencer.
You're welcome. It's good to be here. Thanks for having me.
I can't help but think about the name Snaxonville. One, I think it's really clever.
Thank you. So my wife would take full credit for it. We have this playful banter about who came up with it. I think in reality she did, but I can't let her have that. So we argue about it. But she came up with the name. And I'm surprised it wasn't taken, even though we spell it weird. So it gets misspelled.
If you would have spelled it regular, do you think it would have been taken?
It was taken. I think that's why we spelled it with the X. But the problem is every time someone looks us up, they spell it the way that I would prefer it to be spelled.
Oh, yeah.
With the CK. But yeah, great name. I think getting some leverage from it.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I was thinking about all the things you can do. Like all the companies that you have your Snaxonville. I was like, okay.
I was hesitant about that.
I love it. And then I was like, what else could you do? Like you could have a wax company.
That was where my brain went. Yeah.
We
could do candle company. Candle company. I think candle is like the next move. We could have some like food scented candles.
Oh,
that's not a bad idea.
Not a bad idea.
I hope no one takes that.
Yeah. Hurry up and just go get the Instagram
someone
handle.
At least, someone grabs the domain and it's gone forever.
It might already be taken. Who knows? But it cracks me up.
Actually, yeah, you're right. It might be.
I know.
I'll have to look at my options.
When I told my husband the account name, he was like, "I'm just going to call him Snaxonville. I don't even know his name, but his name is now Snaxonville."
I'd respond to it. That's the thing.
If you were to create another fun account though outside of your niche, what do you think you would do?
Okay, so guess. If you had to from just meeting me, if you had to guess, what would you say? Because I don't think anyone could guess it, especially if you know me. I'll tell you. So I just got into golf.
Oh.
I've never, ever golfed in my entire life.
Okay.
But me and some buddies are kind of exploring some golf content. And what I've realized is, first of all, golf's way more fun than, I feel like it's being gate kept a little bit.
Okay.
Part of me is growing up, I was like, golf's so expensive. I can never do it. And as I get older and you kind of learn how much money it actually costs, it's really not that bad.
Yeah.
Well,
it probably depends.
It's pretty expensive, but I can afford to at least go to the driving range, which to me is pretty fun. And so what I've learned about golf content specifically is you can kind of stick a camera behind someone just playing golf. And even if you don't really like golf, it's at least mildly entertaining.
Yeah.
Because golf's such a crazy game. I don't know. Maybe that's just the rabbit hole I got into. And then there's a whole golfing community and there's a bunch of different dynamics of that. So I'm kind of leaning into that world. I never thought I would land there, but I'm really enjoying golf and I think I'm actually going to be helping with some golf content soon. So that's my answer.
That's really interesting and super fun.
It's such a transition from, even though we've been to some golf tournaments, it's such a weird transition from the food world.
So tell me a little bit about yourself, family, wife, career.
Sure. So I moved down here to kind of go to college, go to UNF, just kind of relocate from Minnesota, start fresh. And I worked at a restaurant called Taco Lu for a little bit.
Oh, you did? Nice.
Yes. And what spun off of that is me and one of the kitchen managers there had this grand idea of starting a food truck. And so we launched a food truck, and
what was it called?
it's called Joystick Food Truck.
Okay.
It was a video game themed food truck.
Okay.
There was a TV mounted to the side where people could play like Super Nintendo or whatever while they waited for their food. The menu was all themed video games. I had this like big kind of plan because I was in love with this idea of like the video game bar or whatever, where like there's a few like in Orlando or something where you can get food and play like computer games or console games.
I didn't even know
I just
that.
thought it was the coolest thing because I was
Yeah.
a gamer at the time, and I was like, I think it combined a couple things that I really liked, and I was like, I think I could pull this off.
Yeah.
And I somehow was able to get a couple people to invest money, and we bought a food truck, and
Wow.
it immediately broke down, and my partner was forced to find other employment because couldn't afford that
Wow.
lifestyle.
Oh,
I
gosh.
kept running it, and I was forced to learn how to cook, which I didn't know. He was kind of supposed to be the guy for that, and so just a crazy few years doing that. That is kind of played a bigger role in my story than I thought. I thought it was just going to be like a failed business venture. Because what happened at the end was I tried to start another truck, and 2 is not always better than 1. And then
Okay.
COVID hit, and
Oh, wow.
yeah, it's so I feel like sometimes telling my story is really hard because it's like it almost feels like 19 different stories.
Yeah.
It's like one of those like short story compilations, but like that's one of the short stories is owning a food truck and having my employees buy it from me right before COVID start. And then obviously it went super downhill. I had to like repossess it, resell it. Kind of during that time though, I met my wife. We met on dating apps, which again it's a whole nother short story.
Yeah.
It doesn't fit necessarily super well in the I would just say people look at it people are a little bit wary of the dating apps, but that's how I met my wife, and we started going to 1122 about 2018, running the food truck, transitioned from the food truck to tax accounting. I know like I said, when people are like, tell your story, I'm like, oh boy, get ready. But yeah, so I was going to school. That was one of the conditions. My dad put some money into the food truck. One of his conditions was keep going to school. I was going to go for business. I took an accounting class and liked it. And I just decided to get an accounting degree.
Awesome.
Got an internship, did some tax accounting, and then transitioned from the food truck to do that. That's kind of where some of this starts to pick up. That's why I started Snaxonville.
Okay. And that was the next question anyways.
Yeah.
Okay.
So as weird as it seems, that was kind of the catalyst for me is going through COVID. So coming from the food truck industry, seeing so many of my friends with restaurants and food trucks suffer intensely because of the drop off of sales, like I'm actually insanely surprised that more people didn't close, and I think there was some payroll protection stuff that was involved in that. But what we wanted to do is we wanted to create an avenue for people to learn about these local spots so that they would go support a local restaurant or a food truck as opposed to like McDonald's or Chili's.
Gotcha.
And what we noticed about Jacksonville is that's like a big thing here. There's a ton of chain restaurants, but there's also a ton of really good local restaurants. And specifically at that time, like, were you on social? You were probably on social media back in COVID times, right?
For sure.
So that was kind of when TikTok started, and the meta or whatever you'd call it for Instagram at the time was just pictures.
Yeah.
Like that was what was popular, and they had this really dumb feature, like the Instagram like movies or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
And like it was
like
post,
Instagram TV or whatever.
It wasn't good. It was really weird.
Yeah.
And they were testing it out. But what happened was we decided that just one of the things about me, I think growing up and still now, is that like I don't like doing things the way everyone else does them. Like if I see something's popular, my gut is to like try to find something like similar but different. Mm-hmm. Like I don't want to go the same way. And so there were other food bloggers in town, and all they were doing was pictures, which they were doing a good job, but I wanted to do videos because it just had to be different, I guess.
Yeah.
And so we came up with these fun video ideas. Like I would blindfold myself and try something and see if I could guess what menu item it was, or like I enjoyed coming up with the concepts for videos. And what happened was my wife convinced me to go on TikTok, and I was like, isn't that the dancing app? And at the time, I think it was.
I think my husband still thinks that's what it is. I'm like, it's not.
It kind of is. But
maybe.
It's also a lot more than that.
Yeah.
So we went on that, and I posted a few just videos about different restaurants. And the thing that I noticed is, and this plays into the accounting thing, but I'm a math guy, and you'd post a video to, at the time it'd be like 50 followers, and it would get like 1,000 views. And I was like, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Because I don't have 1,000 followers.
Yep.
And so I started kind of learning about what the algorithm was, and that it became like a game to me. Like I liked to see what I could do to try to, actually, I think at the time I was just like, hey, it's almost like a magic button for exposure.
Yeah.
And so I just kept creating.
So you really got your start on TikTok.
I would say that's that's the springboard for sure. Like we posted the video. I'm not even that proud of it because it's not a local restaurant, but we posted a video about Texas Roadhouse.
Oh.
And it got
a
couple million views, and that's where
awesome
pretty much all of our followers on TikTok came from. Which again, not the proudest of it, but I think just getting that bug was like, it was just one of those things where it's like, I enjoy how the algorithm treats content on TikTok, and then Instagram kind of closely followed behind. And we started getting more traction, and restaurants would start to reach out to us to come just do videos about their venues. And at the time, our motto was, we only say nice things about restaurants, because at the time restaurants were really hurting, and there's just so many people who were very critical of different local restaurants, like with reviews. I think for whatever reason I made Yelp an enemy in my mind. I was like, we're out to combat all the people on Yelp trashing these local spots. But really the goal was to just try to drive business into local spots. And I think since then, Snaxonville evolved. Since then, it's just me and Hannah in Jacksonville. My family moved out of town, so it's just us. We have a couple kids. I would say these are probably some of Snaxonville's cool, but I really enjoy spending time with my family. And I think if Snaxonville wasn't something we could do as a family, I don't think I'd still be doing it. So my wife helps me do all the reviews. She does some of the PR of Snaxonville, and we bring our little boys along with us. And our son Nolan's kind of been forced to learn how to hang out in a restaurant with us, and
that's actually super convenient.
it took a lot of pain.
Yeah,
the toddlers are not built for some of the restaurants that we have to go do videos for, and they're not always very content friendly.
Yeah. You had mentioned when we were emailing that in this whole process, you've been a little bit embittered. What specifically about social media or content creation has created that feeling for you?
Well, can I flip the question on you a little bit and say, what inspired you to do a podcast talking about, I guess, being a light in the influencing world? Because there had to be something that you saw where you're like, there is an element of darkness that I want to be different in this space.
For me, it came more from the fact that everybody that you know has a cell phone. every Christian that I know has a phone, at least in the United States. And I just felt like there was a lack of discipleship around it. I was like, we all have this thing. We all have a microphone we carry in our pockets. We all have the ability to speak to hundreds of thousands to millions of people. And there's nobody that I see in one place having constant conversations about how can we steward this thing better. I would hear occasional talks from speakers and stuff like that, but I'm like, but this is an ongoing thing and it's ever changing, and like, where's the conversation?
It was like kind of like a breakout session versus something that's like a theme within the Christian community. Is
yes.
Like, how can we steward this well?
Yes. And because as somebody who has been in like the content creation space, I was always looking for somebody to tell me like, hey, this is what I would do, or this is how we should be handling these things. Because obviously we have the Bible, but it doesn't explicitly say.
No, social media is a whole new animal.
Yeah, it didn't exist. And even the generation previous to me couldn't give me advice because they're just as new as I was.
Right.
So I was like, oh, shoot, well, that's kind of up to us.
And a lot of times
provide the guidance.
They'll speak into it and it's
almost negative.
So the out of touch is too harsh. I don't think it's necessarily out of touch, but I don't think it's as relevant as someone in the space can offer. And again, that's why I've been so fascinated with this podcast in particular and kind of dug into it. And I think that actually sort of is the umbrella under which this embitterment took place. And I think where it's sort of led to is a more practical conclusion. But there were a couple of things that happened kind of along my journey that have made me a little bit more, I guess, nihilistic when it comes to social media as a Christian. And I'm trying to evolve from that a little bit.
That's a fancy word. What does that mean?
Maybe I'm using it wrong, but my interpretation or my understanding of that word is like, it's all bad.
Oh, okay.
I don't necessarily think that's true, but that's where my brain has been sort of bent to.
Okay. Why?
So first of all, the numbers. I like numbers, I like math, and I like games, and the game has been ruined for me. I don't know if you've noticed this, but there are a lot of influencers who use some sort of bots or apps to kind of jimmy rig their engagement.
No. I mean, okay, I think, so this is where you probably know more than I do, because one of my big things, and maybe you heard this with my interviews with Pastor John, like, I'm very like, if it doesn't feel authentic, I don't want to do it.
Then you're gonna
and
be
that's
completely
why
separated
I
from this.
always.
And you also might hate this the same way I hate this.
Okay.
So what I noticed was that other people, specifically in the Jacksonville food scene, and again, it does. At the end of the day, I should not care about this, and I don't. But what I did notice, and it was not something I could overlook, was that there were people who were producing similar content who were getting 10x, 20x the engagement results.
But was it real engagement or fake engagement?
It's fake engagement. And the reason I know that...
Wouldn't the algorithm punish you for doing that when it finds it?
So for a while, I was just like, maybe they just got the algorithm nailed. Mm-hmm. And then I would notice, for example, you'd see a video... Again, I just want to go out in front and say, this is something I'm not necessarily even proud of. I think this is a real element of bitterness that I've had to wrestle with, but it is part of my story. They'd post about like a coffee shop or something, which as a food influencer, I will just tell you straight up, you don't get really any engagement on a coffee shop post. Okay. It would have 100,000 views, 20,000 likes, 20,000 shares, and like 10 comments.
You're like, this makes no sense.
And I'm like, I would see all the other posts do similarly, and I was like, man, they're killing it. Then I'd see this post, and I'd be like, that's really strange. That is very unlike my 3 or 4 years of experience doing this. Also, the math isn't mathing. Like 10 comments doesn't correlate with 100,000 views in any realm whatsoever. So either I'm completely missing something and they just found like the magic bullet for social media. But then I noticed more and more people, this started to happen where they would produce very similar content to me, similar content to other people, just explode. Similar situation, tons of likes, tons of views, tons of shares, not really any comments. And again, I could be completely misled.
I have seen some of that. Like I would always wonder how, I'm like, something's not adding up on certain things. Maybe it might not have been
So I don't know what happened.
Yeah.
Like, I can't tell you definitively what that person did or didn't. But for me, the frustration was saying, I'm doing the exact same thing. It wouldn't even be like they're doing slightly better or they're doing a good amount better. It would be like they're doing multiple amounts. And so,
and the content might not even be that good.
and good for them. You know what? They can have the views or whatever, but for me, it ruined the game. It ruined like the it became a pay to play element. Like, do you still win in games where you can like pay to like power yourself up, or, you know, like in the video game world, if you can power yourself up with extra money, do you still win when you win? Yeah. Like they still get brand deals. They still get those eyeballs, whether they're real or not. They probably do get extra traction because the algorithm tends to snowball people. So they do actually get results at the end of the day. But to me, it ruined it because like, I'm not going to pay to me, on principle, I wouldn't do it. Is it wrong? I don't know. It just ruined the fun for me. So that was part of it. The second part for me was, I would say there was an element when I started doing reviews. It wasn't when people disagreed. I love it when people disagree. And I love especially when they disagree and tell me exactly why. Because it's like, great, a variety of perspective. People who don't just like, it's not some like closed room where everyone's saying the same thing all the time.
And it opens up conversation and even more content opportunities for you.
I love it. I sincerely love that. What I did not like was being accused of being a liar.
Oh.
Which happens a lot in the food review world. So people assume, especially in this, one of the most contested video series that I still do is our top 5 list. Okay. So we pick like a theme or an area of town or something. I like to mix it up, but I pick like my top 5 restaurants, and I say, these are the top 5 restaurants. These are the top 5 hot dog restaurants in Jacksonville based on what we've tried so far. And then I list them off 5 through 1. And those videos, the comments, if you go back and look, about 80% negative. And of those 80% negative, about 75% of those negative comments are calling me an idiot, saying I don't know what I'm talking about, or accusing me of lying and getting paid off to say things. And the reason I'm bitter about it is because that's the only thing that's like the one thing I care about. Like, you could say like, you don't know what you're talking about with food. It's like that, like, that's fine. Like, I probably don't. I'm not like a chef. I don't really have any accolades to my name to like defend, but to say that I'm lying more specifically because you just don't agree with what my tastes are, it gets to me simply because I genuinely care about being truthful. Like, it genuinely upsets me if people were to take money to promote a restaurant in a list like that, where they're trying to, when they're saying they're giving their honest opinion, but it's driven by money. That's something I literally went to great lengths to do. Like, I had an outside non-food company sponsor these lists. Shout out to Farrah and Farrah. They sponsor those lists every month. And I did that specifically so I could monetize it without taking money from any of the local restaurants and just purely give my opinion and support.
It's a good idea.
And so I think in the process, what I realized is, like, number one, social media is a little rigged, and I can get over that. Like, that's some money-making capitalist sort of venture. It's marketing. But then for me, it's like the second part that embittered me is like, no matter how I tried to present myself as honest or as a Christ, if I were to try to present myself as a Christ follower, and this is, I guess, is a good life lesson, but not everyone's going to see you that way. And I've had to wrestle with those things because I think those are both actually valuable life lessons. Like, you can't always control the outcome, and you certainly can't control what people think of you regardless of how hard you try. And as a people pleaser, that was something I wrestled with intensely.
Yes.
And so when I say I'm embittered in the process, I think I'm still on the tail end of wrestling through that. It's still really hard for me. Like, we're going to post another one of those lists, I think, before this podcast comes out, and I'm literally not going to look at the comments. I can't do it. it's too bad.
Man, you said a lot of good things, and my mind goes in a lot of different places. One thing that I've always tried to just tell myself and remind myself of, whenever I've seen people maybe pay for followers or things like that, and because that temptation to be like, well, if they're doing it, can't I just do it? And even I've seen it with believers. I've seen believers do it and stuff like that. But for me, I just always felt like the Lord put it on my heart that I'm not supposed to do it that way. And when I have that piece of that, like God says, like, hey, like I want to set you, like I can't say that the Lord verbally told me that. Okay, that's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying that, like, for me, I felt like the Lord's like, if you want to be set apart, and if that's what I have for you, like, you're not going to need to pay for these followers. Because for me, when I look at other people and see that they paid, my trust for them actually goes out the window. I'm like, if you did that, what else can't I trust from you? Now, that might not be completely true. They could be a great person. They could love the Lord and all the things, and that's an area they compromise. But that's what in a way, that's kind of how I measure sometimes. Right. And right or wrong, right? They could have paid for those followers a long time ago, and but that's something that I've just chosen not to ever do, because to me it doesn't really add any value, and especially now with this endeavor, that would be completely opposite of what I feel like the message that the Lord
very fair.
Has on my heart. But there have been seasons where, if I was trying to build my personal account or things like that, that the temptation
Do you think it's a legitimate tool that believers can use to grow their following? Or do you think there are biblical and spiritual principles that kind of, because I know what I think about this, but do you think there are things that compromise our integrity in doing that?
I would say, yeah, it compromises your integrity, and it's not real. It's not real. And you can it's like signing up for some sort of marathon or whatever and doing performance enhancing drugs and saying you still won. No, yeah, on paper you still won, but like you cheated. And for me, I know God's going to look at me at the end of my life and call that out in me. And I don't want that to be the message of my life, even in an area as simple as that. Am I saying that you are a bad person or you can't follow Christ and do those things?
Well, you can follow Christ and come from any. That's the thing. It's not a condition that keeps you from Jesus, I think. But if we're talking about using our platforms in a way that honored Jesus, to me, I think I agree with everything you mentioned about it. For me, again, sort of encapsulating some of the stuff you said about social media as a whole, I think the struggle is, how do we look different as believers on social media? Because realistically, if we're believers and we're just doing everything the rest of the world does, but like Jesus flavored, it's, to me, maybe to other people it isn't, but to me that's a little off-putting. Yeah. To me, I think we have so much more potential and originality to create legitimately good content that's legitimately God honoring without compromising. Yeah. And that very much is where we've tried to lean with our platform. Have I done it perfectly? Absolutely not. I think lately God's pointed us in a direction that I'm really excited about and really proud of, that I think will allow me to do that more. And I think more specifically, like even in Joby's recent sermon, I think it talks, when he mentions pride, that's what I think of with, and I think that's what a lot of people think of with social media. And even to some degree, like Joby's kind of perception a lot of social media, which isn't super far off, is that it's a lot of like holding up the camera to our face. And I think the temptation with buying followers is it's an attempt to make ourselves look better. It's an attempt to sweeten the highlight reel. And realistically, can
I add something?
Yeah, 100%.
Sweeten the highlight reel, whatever it may do. But at the end of the day, like for me, the truth is like the road is narrow. And if we're going to pursue Jesus. Like, I don't expect the road to be easy, even because he does not promise us success. And my mind goes to one thing I appreciate about my husband is there's a lot of times he'll do things very differently than I would. One time,
my wife says that. It's just very different tone.
Well, sometimes it's not always best, but there are some areas that I very much am like, wow, like you had way more patience than I did. One time, our neighbor down the street borrowed we used to go to the shooting range all the time, and they borrowed one of our steel targets, an expensive steel target, and they didn't know it. When they showed us the steel target after they went to go give it back, it had all these like little dents in it, and if it has these certain dents in it, it's no. Because
you used a certain ammunition.
Yeah, like the ammo, they must have shot with something that
you're not supposed
to, and it ruined our target.
Right.
And me, I'm like, Jack, you got to get on the pay for that. Got to get our money back,
like my
or
wife.
whatever. Like, I'm like, come on, like. And he's like, no, it's okay, you know. And long story short, because I was on his tail, I'm like, Jack, we need to, like, that they ruined our target. But Jack was really patient, and he never even brought it up. And in fact, later on, our neighbor ended up needing something, and we ended up helping each other out. And then there came a time where our neighbor had to redo their entire driveway. They had done it with with a rock, and the HOA said they couldn't do it. So they had to get rid of all their rock, and they had to replace it with cement. And because of how Jack loved this man well and all that, they gave us all the rock because we happened to need it for a part of the side of our house. And they gave us all this free rock, like probably thousands of dollars of rock.
A lot more expensive
than
the target, I would assume.
And I just couldn't help but think, like, if I would have had my attitude and went over there and was just like, give us that target, the money for the target or whatever, like we ended up blessing him, and then it opened up an opportunity for him to bless us back. Like, I say all of that just to say, like, social media is the same way. Like, we might not see the benefits on the front end and be like, gosh, I didn't pay for the followers and I didn't do it this way or whatever, but I do believe that there's lasting benefits, and there's somebody down the line that might be looking at your stuff saying, you know what, they held by their convictions the whole time. And I'm so blessed for that. And you just never know what the future impact of, like, those decisions that to you might feel like, like, how come these people get to be more successful in this area because they compromise? Like, you just never know, like, the impact that it's going to have long term. And I always try to think of it through that life, because I've seen it in my own life in other areas, and the way that my husband has handled things that maybe in my way I would have done it one way, but I'm always so glad that we did it the other way.
To affirm your story, I have kind of that's sort of how my story is ending. Well, ending's not the right word, but that's where it's landed, is a little bit of I think in the past, earlier this year, I went through a really dark period in my life. I was working a corporate job, trying to eke out videos when I could, and then trying to build an accounting business on the side. And I think I was just at this point where I was like, God, why did you make me this way? Like, because some of those things you're talking about, where I believed intensely when we started Snaxonville that we're not charging local businesses because we want long-term lasting relationships with them that are fruitful for them. And I guess I put the us part off, but I figured the same thing. Like, you know what, if you bless people later on, maybe if you need something, they can help you, something like that. And so going through this really dark period of my life, wondering why God built me that way, why God made me want to even be entrepreneurial, start my own thing. Like, why can't I just have an easy life and do what everyone else is doing, cut corners, whatever you have to do to survive? What ended up happening is I was able to sort of leverage some of the trust and relationships that I built through Snaxonville, supporting these restaurants over time, to kind of double, then triple, then clients for my accounting business just kept pouring in. And one of the things that was so difficult is I had too many to justify working a corporate job because it was so much time, but not enough to go out on my own. And through the period of our son being born and paternity leave and just kind of announcing to the world that I was doubling down and doing this, so many poured in that like now on a daily basis, I get to go serve business owners, small business owners and restaurants in a whole new capacity. And not only that, but like the time I put into this food truck that I thought was just this giant waste of time on my resume, and this time I put in trying to understand and actually be like compassionate to these food truck owners when it comes to marketing and understand the restaurant industry, all of that kind of came full circle to now I can apply. Again, I thought tax accounting was like, why am I doing this out of all things? It sort of all came to a full circle conclusion where I feel like now I can truly bless some of these small business owners and restaurant owners with what I'm doing right now. And I think it also allows me to still kind of maintain that conviction. Yeah. Like what I'm doing now is I'm doing accounting work for them, and I'm focusing on the small guys because a lot of accounting firms just want, like, the goal is high net worth clients. I want to work with small business owners who really need help. Yeah. A lot of times it's extra work. I look at it as I want to serve them truly because I don't think other people are serving them. And it's been incredible. And I'm excited to see how the Lord uses that. But all that to say, like with social media, I strongly agree that taking the longer route, maybe the harder route, I think God tends to bless that. I can't speak in terms of absolutes, but he certainly did in my life. And I know there were times where we really struggled with kind of the principle of cutting corners. And even now, like, we could probably charge places to do what we do. And I still don't really want to do that. But I truly think that's sort of God's economy.
Agreed. Yeah. I do want to go back to one thing that you were saying about how, you're going to do that top 5 or whatever in a little bit, and that you probably won't even look at the comments. And though I've never been in that position, I just want to encourage you that a lot of the times, especially when it comes to social media, most people aren't going to say like the positive thing. You know what I mean?
Well, no, that's true. I know all the things.
Like they might hit the like button, but the most of the time they're not going to comment like their positive opinion and be like,
so
yeah, like naturally, I think that kind of post is inviting people out of all the hundreds of restaurants in Jacksonville. You're only listing 5, but I just say that to encourage you that,
well, there's a few facets.
You can't people please everybody.
So the interview with Ty, where he was talking about getting canceled, that he experienced this to so much more intense of a degree than I did, so I can hardly even speak to it. But regardless of how true you think some of the feedback you're getting is, I think there's still a psychological effect of being exposed to it. So for me, social media is all pretend. Yeah. Like people say things that they would never say in real life. They act in ways they would never act in. It's absolutely unhinged, which makes it such a weird place also to just even be a believer and try to be a light, because people are feral. But with some of those comments, what I've learned is that although I know none of them are true, my temptation is to fight. Like I like to argue and try to make, like if someone tries to dunk on me in the comments, I try to make them look dumb in the comments. That's my struggle. And I have learned that even if I do that, I don't feel better. It is not satisfying. And so the best thing for me in talking about practical guardrails is to just keep away from it as much as possible. It gives myself more time that even if I do glance at them, it gives me a much easier headspace to be able to overlook it, because it starts to work you up when people are telling you you're a bobo over and over. And
yeah, and you can only, I think one of the hard parts about living as a believer in general, even if it's as small as something as a food review, like you don't need to sit there and defend yourself for every single
really good.
thing that you
don't have to
there.
defend yourself at all.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
The Lord will fight for you. That feels overly spiritualizing something like that, but it's like,
you're right.
It's, that will exhaust you and it'll drain, it actually will take away from your ministry because you're wasting energy on something you can't fix anyways.
I'm also curious on where you stand on this, but there was something that I probably need to practice more, but the Lord laid something on my heart a few years ago is just the principle of you don't owe the internet something. Like
what?
So if you take family pictures, you don't owe it to the internet to share those. Or if you're experiencing a special family moment. Because for me, my temptation growing up was to think of something really profound and instantly be like, I got to tell people this because everyone's going to think people are going to benefit from it. What I've learned is sometimes it is more significant if I can just keep that thing for myself, keep that memory for myself. A good example is we typically don't make content on date nights. We have nights that Hannah and I go out and we don't, if it's a restaurant we haven't been, we'll just quickly take out our phones and snap videos or whatever. But there is an element of separating content from significant parts of life. And so I always struggle real hard with the people who want to be like family bloggers, because in some way you're taking relationships you have that are really profound with your family and trying to intermingle content with that. For me, it's sort of ironic. And when I think I mentioned to you, like I would drop social media in a day if I could. And I don't post on my personal page anymore just because I tended to lean so far in the direction of like all the people in my life that I need to know things tend to know them.
Yeah.
To the degree where I don't know how I got my wife on board with this, but we didn't do a birth announcement on Snaxonville for our second son, which the thing is everybody who was invested in our life still knew about it.
Yeah.
But I think I had the conviction. I was like, basically,
like, why do I need to
doing this in our mind would be like, I'm doing this for attention. It's a hard line, and it very much is personal conviction. And I tend to lean way on the side of I struggle super hard. I know you guys talked with Pastor John about self-promotion. I struggle super hard with that to the degree where I have to sort of force it. And I think my dad is kind of the influence there. But yeah, with family stuff, I try to reserve significant moments for us, and my wife will share it with our family, take pictures because she likes to remember those things. But I think we've learned sort of a healthy line for us with what people need to know and what kind of robs the significance of those moments for us.
Yeah, I would say I agree with you that it's absolutely a personal conviction and something I couldn't ever enforce on somebody else. I will say there are times where I've seen things that I'm like, I don't know if that needed to be shared. I have seen a couple of things that I thought have maybe gone over the line, but it's like, it's also the same thing. Some people are really convicted about ever posting their kid's face on social media, and some people aren't. And I kind of fall into this camp. Sometimes I'm like, should I post this? But like, also, I also don't want to live a life of fear either. And so it's sometimes it's more of like a tension to manage than it is just like a black and white thing for me.
It sure is. It's like a spectrum, because also there's a totally separate conviction, because my struggle tends to be wanting the attention, and someone else's struggle might be God's pushing them to share something that they don't want to share. Right. Totally different convictions. Yeah. And that's so why true. It really is personal. And I don't think so I don't know if you've seen this, but for me, like there's a lot of like TikTokers who will do a very popular, like, I don't know if it's a skit or what you'd call it, is where it's B-roll, but it's not. It's like them smooching their boyfriend or husband or something, and then there's words over the screen.
Oh.
And it's something like inspiring or whatever.
But it's a manufactured moment.
That's it for me.
Yeah.
So however God made me in the very weird way I'm made, as a content creator, I can't help see hey, honey, come here. Nope. Move to your left. All right. Now look like you love me. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And like, I can't not see that. And to me, it just sucks any significance out of that video for me. Again, I'm sure tons of people enjoy it. That's a personal
where it's
connection.
Really tough for me because I don't really know what that person's actual real life is like. But like, if I put myself in their shoes, like if my husband and I aren't the type that kiss each other all the time anyways, kind of thing, I don't want to put that on social media and act like we are that kind of couple.
That's totally fair.
And so I always try to look at when I see content like that. Sometimes I get annoyed too. I'll be like, whatever.
But that's an authenticity
I'm like, I do
thing.
think about that. It's like, but maybe they are like that actually in their real life, and that's just more of an overflow.
And it wasn't super manufactured. It was just a little. I mean,
granted,
everything on social media is a little
curated.
Staged. Yeah.
Yes, everything. So I do have some grace in that area for creators,
For
where
sure.
I think like, no, everything you see is what they want you to see.
For
like
sure.
it's curated. But as believers, I think we should follow our convictions differently in how we stage those things. And all I know is that when I feel the Holy Spirit prompt me not to do something, like you had just said, like you were like, we don't really feel like we should post this birth announcement. This doesn't feel right for us right now. That's fine. And I think that's great that you did that. And maybe you'll look back and be like, okay, maybe that was overkill. I don't know. But
some of it is. Some of it's all gray. But like, I think being sensitive to the Holy Spirit is something that sometimes we loop social media out of. Mm-hmm. We almost think it's its own universe. Because it almost is its own universe, but sometimes I feel like it's hard to be sensitive to some of the specific callings that we have with social media because of all the peer pressure that is involved with it.
Well, I mean, you've already kind of asked a couple of the questions that you thought you had for me, or you turned it around. I wasn't sure if you had any more of those.
Oh, I have a big topic that I actually did want to touch on.
Sure.
So one of the things, you call it upside down influencer.
Yes.
What do you define an influencer? I'm sure this has been asked to you, and the reason I ask this is I am almost even hesitant to call Snaxonville or to call us influencers.
Yeah. Because
of the way I define it. So I'm curious how you define it.
Well, I use it more as a play on the common term of what we now call an influencer. And I probably feel similarly to you. Like, I don't like it. I believe everybody has influence.
I totally agree. That was one of the directions I was going with that.
Yeah. And just because you call yourself an influencer also does not mean that you
have influence
or that you're like actually leveraging it. Like, there's a difference between being just on the internet and actually having real life influence. And that sounds like it contradicts what I just said.
No, to segue there, we're on the internet. I don't believe we have influence. I think we get people to try new restaurants.
But see, I would actually disagree. Even though the word influencer might make you cringe a little bit, I think now at the point that you are at and people follow you and trust, I think you probably have, even though you get a lot of negative comments, I'm sure, you probably also have a lot of people who trust the things that you say and look at that and go, you know what, he's never really steered me wrong. Now, granted, they might have a different taste preference than you, but it doesn't mean that they don't trust your reviews or the authenticity of your review. You know, so because of that, I would say, especially at this point, like, I would say you have what I would consider like real influence.
I would say it's niche influence. I think it's influence.
For sure.
So here's, I guess, kind of why I don't define us as influencers, but I would agree with your assertion that we have some influence. I think every time on Snaxonville, we have tried to mobilize anybody. Every time we've done a food-related fundraiser, like one of the big parts of our story, and that sort of drives some of my convictions, is my wife was diagnosed with breast cancer at 36 weeks with our first son. And so breast cancer is a very big theme in our lives, and it's something that we take every opportunity to try to be involved in the awareness and fundraising for breast cancer research, and just creating community around. But every time we try to mobilize people for it, it's just nothing happens. Like, we can't sell merch, we can't do that. And I've learned that. And I at first it bothered me, but I became very okay with it. And anytime we share elements of our personal lives on Snaxonville, just no views. And again, I'm fine with that. I know what Snaxonville is. Snaxonville is something where the people who watch it enjoy learning about different restaurants. And that's what Snaxonville is. And so we're influential in that scene. If there's a new restaurant and they want people to know about it, we're a great pick for that. If there is a footwear brand that wants us to promote them, I just tell them straight up, you are not going to get any sort of eyes. Like, we've tried stuff like that. And so when I say we're not influencers, what I mean is people don't necessarily care about our lives. And there's actually a beauty in that. I like being able to create content that's not about me. That's actually one of the most redeeming parts about Snaxonville, is I can turn it into something that makes somebody else look good. I can point eyes at someone else doing something cool, and I don't have to worry about making myself look a certain way. I can keep all of my thoughts and opinions out of it. Again, it makes it a little hard because I can't do a gospel presentation in a video that I think people will engage with and listen to. But what I can do is serve and lift up these restaurant owners, and ideally through that service and those relationships, point them to Jesus.
Right.
Which is ultimately, through this whole CPA journey, I think is what God's kind of led me to, is social media and being an influencer doesn't have to be the camera's on me, look at my life, engage with it as you will, become a fan of me. I think you're a great example of this because you're creating content, shining light on other people's stories. I mean, you get to share part of yours too, but ultimately you're displaying what God's doing in other people's lives, and you're able to be influential without doing the selfie thing. And to me, what I want to do with Snaxonville in the future is find more ways to do that, to shine light on people in a creative way. It doesn't have to be about me, my ego, that's another reason I want to get away from reviews. I don't really want to share my opinion anymore. Yeah. It's a little tired by now, actually. Like, people are maybe a little sick of it, besides the fact that they're like, I recognize your voice from Snaxonville. So I think sometimes when I think of Christian influencers, especially on TikTok, the mentality is I need to do a little vlog, share my life, share what I'm wrestling with, do my day in the life. When in reality, one of the biggest struggles with social media is some of the narcissistic tendencies, the making it all about me. And
now,
I think there's ways around that.
I don't want to lose my train of thought.
Okay, yeah, sorry, I was going.
No, it was good though. The way that you presented that was interesting. I don't think anybody's ever brought that up before, that you're like, oh, well, like, maybe I can't mobilize people now, but that does not mean to me that you're not, again, an influencer. It just means that the way that you go about your influence looks different than the way the stereotypical
100%
influencer does. So it really comes down to definitions, like we were saying.
You're splitting hairs at some point.
Before, because I totally understand that. Like, that makes total sense. It just means that, yeah, your influence is actually in a different area. Now, what I do think, an idea that you could do is maybe instead of trying to mobilize people in person, it's more like, people have these new like groups that they create on Instagram now, like broadcast channels. Now, I don't tend not to join those.
Know, this is free, but I'm going to hear you out here.
I don't really join them unless there was one that I was like genuinely really interested in. Like there's a girl that I buy bread from, and she has a broadcast channel where she's like, she posts her classes that she's going to teach you how to make sourdough, and she kind of gives you like just little insider stuff from like that community. So I feel like you could potentially create like a smaller community inside your community, and that could create some momentum. But maybe you've already tried something like that.
Well, so I agree with you, because that's sort of the route. And I think it forces you to be creative when you're sort of niched a little bit. And I sort of chose that niche. Like when the Texas Roadhouse video popped off, guess how I could have gotten millions of more views is by just hitting up all the chain restaurants, because someone in Timbuktu, Michigan could watch it and engage with it. But I chose the local niche, which sort of limits you. Mm-hmm. And in doing so, in niching myself specifically to restaurants and food and local restaurants, and kind of being the local restaurant expert guy, it does limit you to certain avenues as far as content, as far as engaging with people. Where it's sort of led now, and kind of this is almost a cheater way of, I have like a built-in sales funnel. Like if you're in a business or not, they talk about sales funnels, but I have trust built up with different restaurant owners that I've earned through hard work and building relationships. And so now my job is to serve them tirelessly and do a really good job being their CPA. And because of the network I have, and I can just kind of mention that when I'm putting out content, or I don't even necessarily have to, but like I have a big referral network to get more business. And specifically with that, I think you could call it business, but I do look at it as kind of a mission field. Yeah. So I think my group is serving some of these restaurant owners. And again, it is niche. And one thing I'm trying to get rolling is a business owner Bible study.
I saw that.
Yeah, I'm kind of excited about it.
I
need whoever's running the 1122 disciple group Facebook group to approve my post so I can get more people in. So if you see this in time, please approve it, because it's been like a week and a half now. But I think it's already, at least when I posted the first time in that group, it was super well received. And I think there's not a lot like that out there. And it's a conviction I have very strongly. So yeah, I think God's forcing me to find very creative and ways to kind of live out my gifts, which for a while I really wrestled with, why do I have these? But I think he's been really faithful in showing me exactly why I do.
You had mentioned, I think maybe in our emailing or whatever, that you weren't sure that social media was an effective tool for evangelism. And given everything that we just said, is that why? Like just because that seemed to be true for you? Or do you think that overall?
I think that's the one I've been thinking about nonstop, is that question. Is the hard part is I think God can use anybody, anywhere. Like spoke through a donkey. Joby would argue he speaks through a boy from Dylan, and I would argue that he speaks through me, some spicy brain accountant guy. Maybe not in this setting, but hopefully to some of the people I'm serving. And so I think God has the ability to use social media, and it is an incredible tool. I think it's not being leveraged by the church in the way that I think it could be more. I think it could be more effective. I think the church, kind of like you said, has put it as a back burner topic. I think they make cheesy skit videos, but I think if the church is creative and really understands the potential that it has, I think it could reach people a lot better than it is. And I don't want to just throw rocks. I think there's some people who do that really well. Like one of the really big guys there's a couple really big popular Christians who I even think are doing a really good job. Bryce Crawford is someone super well known on TikTok. He's some Gen Z TikTok Christian, very passionate. He does things maybe in a way that I wouldn't do them. But the thing is, he's genuinely impacted a lot of people and forced people to just reckon with the idea of Jesus being their savior. And like, there's another guy, George Janko, who runs a podcast.
I've seen him.
And so it doesn't, I don't think it has to look a specific way, but I think those guys get the potential social media has. Even Forrest Frank kind of blew up with TikTok. Like, that's how his songs got so popular. And so TikTok is, and social media in general, is an incredible tool that can be used to further the kingdom. And I think sometimes our church perspective is limiting it to a Bible verse in our bio.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a bummer.
Despite all the things that like we wrestle with and that all that's good, what's your advice to the social media using Christian and somebody who maybe wants to pursue something like that you did with Snaxonville?
I think regardless of whether your goal is to evangelize through social media or build a platform, you need to start with quality content. This seems like, I know this seems like 101 advice, but like I can't imagine Jesus was a crappy carpenter, because it might take away from his ability to reach people. So you have to kind of start with the basics of like, I think people put the cart in front of the horse with social media. I think their goal is like, once I get enough people following me, then I can really do this influencing thing. And my advice to anyone in the food world or the evangelism world is to focus on making genuinely good, creative, original content. Because the people that I've seen succeed, even in the food world, succeed organically, just had outstanding, well thought out, good content. And so if you're trying to reach people, my encouragement would be, how can I make this look different than how everyone else is doing it? And especially to food creators, I get asked occasionally, like, well, how do you get all those followers? It's like, just be different, man. Like, there has to be something different about you. And especially if it comes down to identifying yourself as a Christian. If you look like everybody else and you're doing what everyone else does on social media, are you really, I guess, any different as far as your convictions go? Like, this is also true in the financial world, but there's a lot of voices that say this is an easy way to achieve blank. There's not an easy way. Like, you just have to be consistent. And to some degree, like, you also have to reckon with the idea that it just might not work out with social media, because there's so many other people trying to do what you're doing.
Totally. That
just practically. But what I can tell you is, your success isn't defined by your follower count. It's not defined by your views. It's not defined by your likes. I genuinely believe if you lean into making good content, whether it's by your platform increasing, or maybe it's just you learning something new about yourself, discovering a new talent, meeting some people, I think creating content tends to always be worth your time, especially if you actually put the time in and attempts to make excellent content.
That's good. Well, my final question for you today is, and you kind of answered this already, but what does it mean to you to be an upside down influencer?
I think, actually, I think you kind of answered this question. I think everybody is an influencer, and realizing that you're an influencer is the upside down part. I think you're influential to the people around you, especially to your family. I think that's actually the upside down element of it, is I think realizing that your primary influence is to spread the gospel to your family and to the people around you. And then the internet is just an extension of that. I know the world would probably have you believe that the most important thing is to appear successful or appear righteous on social media, but I think the upside down part is realizing kind of where the priorities of your influence lie.
That's good. And where can people find you?
Lately on the golf course, but not as often as I can afford or I would like. But I would say if you're trying to find some of our restaurant videos, some of the best places to go would be Instagram and TikTok. The handle is Snaxonville, SNAXSONVILLE. And if I slow down on content, don't judge me. Right now I'm doing this. I made this really poor decision to try to post a video every day for 75 days while we have a baby at home, and I regret it. So at the end of that, if you don't see me for a minute, I'm just recovering. But I'm very much planning on doing some very different and creative videos around local restaurants in Jacksonville, and I'm sure you can find some good places to eat if you watch our videos.
That's great. Well, this has been awesome. I honestly felt like I could have kept talking to you because I love your thoughts. I like the things that you have to say, and I think it's healthy for the average believer, but also just the social media using believer to be thinking through these things.
I appreciate it, and thank you for having me on.
Thank you so much for listening. To follow along with us and to hear about other things that we're doing, you can find us on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube.